regularly. This is the first time you've seen us behind these desks. So on behalf of my colleagues, everyone sitting here and everybody in the administration, let me first thank the administrative team. And I know it was a lot of people, and I don't have the kind of memory that I used to have to recall each and every person, so I won't take the chance of trying to identify them. You know who you are. Our superintendent knows who you are. We are extremely appreciative of the work that you had to put to get us to this place that we haven't been in about a year and a half. And we also appreciate and recognize that you've done this under the most difficult set of circumstances. As Steve, our general counsel, will tell us, from day to day, we didn't know what the rules were going to be about when we would be able to return to this forum. Thankfully, we have a staff that is a board staff and central office staff that really are on top of technology and the law. And again, I can't state it enough. We are really appreciative of this effort to get us to a place where we could return to the people's house, that is the district's people's house. So again, on behalf of the Board of Education, let me say thank you. I've already called the meeting to order. The other thing I wanted to do is, when we haven't done this from this place in a while, but it seems appropriate, we do often have at our business meetings a moment of silence, of recognition. This is a special meeting, however, but there's something very special and very difficult that happened in our nation that just begs us to spend just a brief moment of silence and dedication to prayerful thought to the folks in Miami. My goodness, literally, my God, how difficult that challenge must be. It must have caught an entire community, entire families off guard with that building collapsing in Miami. I think the last time I heard, and I might be out of date on this, 150 people missing, 10 known to be dead. Those are mothers and fathers, I'm sure, aunts and uncles, relatives who are in great pain. We are a great distance away, but my colleagues and I, and I'm sure everybody in this building and beyond, I want to dedicate a few minutes to those families who have suffered the most unexpected, most tragic loss. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to note, as you all know, I feel Captain Kirk, I know I'm dating myself, but this new technology in front of us is going to take some getting used to. We've all been in our homes or in our dens or in our offices doing this stuff very privately. Now we're back in front of the technology. Please, James Cleveland is the gospel singer. Some of you may recall the song, "Please be patient with me. God is not through with me," or I should say us yet. We are gonna make mistakes this evening. We are gonna have to be reminded that we're supposed to do this and that. Please don't charge it to our heart. It is probably something that is going on in our brain. So we're gonna need our staff, we're gonna need each other for the next month or two to get through the adjustments of this new technology. But thanks again to the staff for putting us in a place where we could use it. All right, so that leads us to the consideration of resolutions. There's several resolutions on the board's agenda tonight. I'm going to begin with, unless there's some objection, with the additional pay resolutions, which are marked 857 through 867. I'm sorry, 857 to 873. My colleagues have the description of the resolutions before us.
I just have one correction. 860 is just resolution E through J. We already looked at resolution 868 through D.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So,
But point of
yeah, sure.
Mr. President, I think the only resolutions, the numbers are 857, 859.
No, I realize that.
Okay.
I'm just, as I was saying, my colleagues have before them a description of the resolutions. They are non-consecutive, but
Okay.
I'm just, for folks who don't have the packet, I'm referring to 857 to 873 and those resolutions that exist on our packets. I realize those are not consecutive. And they also, as our clerk pointed out, it should be clarified that 860 is this E through J. Is that right? So just so that we're clear, it's 857, 859, 860, 861, 863, 867, 872, and 873. Those are the resolutions that are referenced in the packet.
President White, I
Yes,
just
ma'am.
also want to have a point of clarification that only 857, 859, 860, 861, and 863 are authorization of additional pay, which is how you initially quoted that.
Yes.
So if you just want to say you want to lump them all, I would make a motion to lump 857 through 873.
Yeah, that's correct. You're absolutely correct. The first 857 to 863 are just additional pay resolutions, and that is how I described them. My preference would be a motion, as you suggested, Commissioner LeBron, to lump those resolutions, unless there's some objection. 857 through 873 is described in the packet. Is there a motion?
So I motioned.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard Commissioner Clark way over there. How you doing, Ms. Commissioner Clark? I feel like we're, in some ways, when we were on Zoom, we seemed a little closer. Now we seem very far apart. All right, so there's been a motion by Commissioner LeBron and a second by Commissioner Clark. Any questions or conversations regarding resolutions 857 through 873?
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta do this the old fashioned way. I gotta
Yeah,
use
you
I gotta
go
look
left to
around.
right, remember?
I'll begin with you, Commissioner LeBron, and I'll work my way back.
Yeah, this was the old fashioned
It's
way. We started on
old-fashioned.
this side. So a couple of questions. I'm gonna start with 857. I just wanted some clarification on how services are going to be delivered for Saturday school. Say services will be delivered either via remote or hybrid modes. Just wanted to understand how that works for Saturday school for students and posing it as one or the other when this is going to, I guess, essentially, it already happened. So that's even more confusing, was 5/28/21 to 6/19/21. I have several questions, President White, so I don't know if you want me to ask all my questions for these resolutions one by one, or you want to keep
Why don't you
circling
just keep
around?
on going and then unless somebody, I'll tell you what though, Commissioner LeBron, if somebody should have a question that's on point, if you, with respect to the resolution you're asking about, so long as you're completed with that resolution, I'll make sure that anybody has a related question can get their question. So let me know when you're done with each resolution, and then I'll look back and forth and see where people are at. All right.
Okay, thank you. So that was 857 for Saturday school, remote hybrid that already passed in the dates. So that resolution would be considered late. 859, just kind of confused because my understanding of True Logic is that it is an online platform for PD in the district. So I wasn't sure what's happening with this specific resolution, which is A. The other thing I want to point out is the certified budget line balances are pretty much all dated, the majority for 4/28/21. And some of these go into next budget year after July 1st. The only ones I can find that even push beyond 4/28 was the ELL, multiple language learning stuff that's further down. So just confusion around that. 861, I just wanted to also understand why these grants are kind of essentially being zeroed out. But again, these certified budget lines are from this budget year when July 1st starts our new budget year. So just some clarification around how that was funded and budgeted for. I don't know who's gonna start answering. I could keep going, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of questions, so.
Superintendent Myers, whoever you designate to speak will respond.
They're on their way up.
All right.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to try and be articulate through a mask, but I'm going to answer your questions that you had, Commissioner LeBron, for Resolution 857. So Resolution 857 is in regards to the Saturday Academy that they offered for these students. And there was a resolution that was already submitted in May and approved. What the school is asking for is that they added additional teachers and needed additional hours for that resolution. So the resolution itself was already approved. They've just added additional teachers and hours based on demand and need.
So can I just follow up then? Because again, the dates are 5/28 to 6/19. So they added additional teachers without authorization or approval from the board when we authorize a certain amount.
Correct.
So that
Correct.
makes me nervous as a board member who has experienced deficits in this district and budget
Correct.
issues, that we pass a resolution and that somehow someone authorized for additional staff to be hired and brought on to the Saturday school, and we're not seeing the resolution till 6/29, which means the work has already been completed. Now we're in a position where we have to pay for work that people already did. And legally, we could be in trouble for that without, you have to pay people who do the work. But no one on this board or this body as a board authorized that additional expenditure.
Correct. So the additional hours and the additional staff was based on student need. So when they initially did the first request, it was based on their projection of student need for Saturday Academy assistance. Once they needed additional staff and additional students, based on additional student participation, they put through the request, but the problem is that the board meeting wasn't until the end of June. So that by that point, that was the only time that they could bring forth the request for the additional resolution expansion for additional hours and additional staff. But these students would need the request for the support for the June regents, which occurred before the board meeting. So they had this Saturday Academy already set up. They had additional students that wanted to participate in order to ensure that they were able to be successful at the end of the June regents exam period. So they went ahead and enrolled the students, and they're asking that they are able to get funding for that decision.
So the board also has had special committee meetings on Tuesdays, and we've had lots of emergency resolutions in the past come before the board. For me, that's not a satisfactory answer, but especially again, when we're just kind of barely recovering from our budget and financial deficit and issues. Okay, and then who's answering for the 859 resolution? The True Logic?
Good afternoon, Commissioner. So True North Logic is our platform by which we register and capture all the hours. It's not the delivery model. So all people register through True North Logic, and that houses our reports, and it generates how we keep track of all the hours that the staff accumulate.
So this is for, it says an indirect service to provide professional learning sessions to K through 12 teachers. And then it's available on an online platform, but you're asking for us to pay these teachers from our 2021 budget, which is closing again at the end of this month in June, from 7/1 to 11/30/21. And I'm curious to why that would not have been budgeted in the new budget.
So it's an incorrect notation. So all of the resolutions or numbers or letters in 859 have the 428 call. That budget line does reflect the 7/1 balance. It was checked on 421 because we haven't accessed it. That balance reflects what we would receive on 7/1.
Okay,
If it was checked on 428, it reflects our 7/1 balance. In our initial budget packet submission, that was notated for continuity. It was noted.
so that's still so I just want to highlight that was actually, and it was the same issue in last week's resolutions in terms of the budget lines and dates not adding up. So I know that we took some time so that you all can address some of these issues, but you want this board to pass resolutions that have incorrect dates on the budget lines.
So it was not incorrect. It was notated on 428 that our 7/1 budget would be the 22 or the continuation of all the resolutions there. So that 421 is when it was checked to reflect what will be respect or loaded on 7/1.
Okay. So I think we should be noting though, that if it's being checked on 428 versus 6/28/21, which would make sense to check it right before we're passing a resolution for 7/1. Because the way I read this, it even says, that you checked it, but how do I know what's in there for 7/1?
it would be a new load, so we wouldn't have any access to it prior to 7/1, which is why the resolution is for work after 7/1.
Okay, I think the board's gonna have to like figure out how that presents and how that looks, because it's really confusing to put that we checked it in January, February, March, April. And we're passing it at the end of June, and we technically would not have any idea as a board what's actually in there. I hear what you're saying, that there's gonna be a new amount in there. We don't know what that new amount is. And so some of these are like right up to the dollar in terms of being expenditure. And I'll give you an example, 861, the expenditure is 29,400, and the grant amount that was verified in there is 30,000. It's really close, like, we're like that close, like one additional, you know, 2 or 3 individuals doing overtime, we're out of balance right there, based on these numbers that are here. So, okay, I'm done with those.
Commissioner LeBron, I believe that Commissioner Powell has a follow-up question to
Yep.
those.
Yes.
So I'm thinking the state isn't as big an issue as it might seem like. If it was checked, if the balance in the account was checked on 4/28 and there were no other resolutions in between 4/28 and today, there's no reason that the balance would change. We would know if there was any other resolution that would have encumbered the dollar amounts. So I personally am not concerned about when was it last checked, so long as there haven't been any resolutions that would affect those lines. And clearly, you know, everything from before 4/28 would have been encumbered. Yes? Such that even if the checks hadn't been cut for those payroll items, we wouldn't actually, please.
So the issue at hand right now is that we're talking about 2 different budget years. Anything that was issued before this date would be encumbered on 2021 time. This reads, we check on 4/28 to make sure that the amount in our 21-22 budget will reflect and then be able to support this. The issue that is being raised is if we had any prior resolution that encumbered 7/1 money, but we did not. And so this 4/28 reflects money that we would receive on 7/1. So we wouldn't have any prior encumbrances on the 7/1 month.
Right.
21-22 month.
That's kind of the point that I was trying to get to. Thank you.
I know Vice President Elliott had a follow-up question.
Yeah, not on that resolution, but on resolution, the one before, 857. And I want to thank Commissioner LeBron for pointing that the date is passed on this. So I have a question for our attorney. What if we said no? And let me just give you some historical background. We used to get these kinds of resolutions all the time. And, you know, I was really outraged about the fact that we would get these resolutions after the fact. So that got changed. So what happens if this board votes? Because my decision tonight is no on 857 because of that same reason. So what if this board said no to resolution 857 and they've already paid it out?
Without delving too deep into attorney-client privilege, I can say that the district would owe the monies regardless. So we'd have to pay them, and then you'd have to decide what the fallout from that would be. That's really the answer. You know, I'd have to advise either under the contract or wage and hour law that if somebody from administration came to me and said, "What we do," I'd have to say, you have to pay it. You have to. And then the board would have to decide what they want to do about that, you know, as far as if they want to, you know, say something about that to somebody. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to keep on going down the line. Commissioner Malloy.
Thanks. My concerns are regarding 857 as well. So my concerns mirror those concerns expressed by both Commissioner LeBron and Vice President Elliott. You know, of course, why was this not brought to our attention sooner? I really do appreciate that we're thinking about our students here. I appreciate that we were trying to prepare students for the Regents exams, but we simply can't have expenditures without advanced board approval. That's a really slippery slope. Not only that, it puts us really in an untenable position as board members, because of course we have to approve this. And it would be unfair to those who've already performed these duties, you know, not having that sort of security. So in the future, we really need to have these in advance, and it could have been a special item on any of our special meeting agendas. Thanks.
Dr. Jallo, did you have a question or comment?
I'm sorry, yes, just very simple. All of the resolutions with 42821, are you paying for it from the previous year's budget and the model? Or are you paying for it with the new budget that starts the day after tomorrow? The new budget. Okay, then I do think these resolutions need to reflect that with the right codes and the right values, because those balances aren't right, those codes aren't right, the years not right. Balance is right.
That's what I mean.
How can the balance be right if it's a whole new budget? New budget, new budget.
So it will be a new budget of as of 7/1. It will be the money that we then get for the next 21, 20.
Right, but the certified balance would be.
If you look at the budget that was approved and loaded, that certified out exactly 7/1. If you look at your new budget and you pull that, that would be what would be reflected on the resolutions for the budget year beginning 7/1. Please, you would, unless advised, add the certified line budget that is current, because that would be for the 2021 year. These are resolutions for the 21-22 year. So you would reflect the budget that you would receive at the beginning of the budget. Which would be 7/1.
So can I just, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Jallo, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to, following that logic, because I have to respectfully disagree with Commissioner Powell about these numbers adding up and not being worried, because there's no way that I'm going to remember all of the resolutions and what budget item lines they've come in from like the rest of this whole entire year. But I just want to point out, following that logic, that it's loading into the amount that's coming in 7/1 into the new budget line. If you look at 861, for example, that's the one where we're really cutting it so close to the total amount. Our spending is $29,400 for staff working from 6:30 to 8:30/21. So 2 months. $29,400 is what we're spending. The certified budget line balance is $30,495 as of 4/20/21. So following that explanation, you're saying that on 7/1, when the new budget item line, you know, for this particular Title III grant, which I thought we got way more money in Title III grant than this amount. And so I really feel like I need to also then research this piece around Title III, and I will reach out to our Commissioner Alvarez at the state to ask her a little bit more about the Title III grant funding, how that works. But are you saying that the $30,495 is what the new amount that was budgeted will load into, and we're spending all of that in these 2 months?
Good afternoon. So Title III grant runs until August 31st. So that's the first, because I remember that you had another question about this is 630, you're going from one year to the other. So I just want to clarify that Title III does go till August. The second thing I want to clarify is that the certified budget line, so there are, the way I understood it and explained to me is that there are different buckets in a Title III grant. Therefore, what you see here for the certified budget line balance, that's one of the buckets that we have. Then when you continue scrolling to the other parts of the resolution that also have Title III, that's another bucket. But there are funding that will continue to roll over.
Okay, so again, even using that understanding with these buckets, if it goes into August, what you're saying is that our 2020-21 budget year for Title III grant doesn't end officially to 8/30, because that's how this 8/31, that's how the state sets it up. But then the certified budget line is still for 2021. So on one hand, we have one person saying, hey, for 2021, it's reflecting of what 7/1 is going to load in that budget line. But what you're saying is, well, we have until August 31st to use Title III grants. That almost kind of contradicts itself for me. I don't know about you all, but that feels contradictory of saying Title III extends to 8/30.
Correct.
And then I have Dr. Black saying on 7/1, a new amount front loads, and that's the new amount. Do you
Well,
see what I
so-
mean?
I do, but, so if you're asking about general funds, and I won't speak for Dr. Black or Mrs. Pierce.
I do want
right?
to talk about general funds too, because
So-
it's on here.
If it's, so I'm referring to the question about Title III grants. That one goes till August 31st.
Okay, and I understand what you're saying there, but this date is certified for 2021. So I'm just trying to understand which budget year is this budgeted, and how can I, as a board member, be able to tell the difference from the 2020-21 budget to the 21-22 budget when all of the dates are certified for 2021?
So I would answer that the certified that you see there, we have certified that in the 21-22, we will have those funds.
Okay, but I just want to again then clarify that you said the funds are from 2021 and they don't end till 8/30 or 8/31, the end of
Sorry, Dr.
August.
Myers, I couldn't hear you. Oh, so I will let our chief.
Yeah,
financial
it's okay.
officer, Because I think she would probably explain it better than I can.
Thank you.
I will try. So if you take a look at the budget code, if it's a budget code that has the letter E, F, or G in that budget code, in that line item, that means it's a special aid fund, and that means it's a grant funded expenditure. Grants can end absolutely in alignment with our regular
Right.
fiscal year, or it can extend out into a date either earlier or later than our current fiscal year. So that's highly dependent upon the grant. With those that are being discussed as title money, as others have said, that is a date that will end August 31st. So that is for the current budget year for that title money. In that budget code, if it's A, then that means it's the general fund. If it's a date, the date range is prior to 6/30, it has to be expended out of the 2021 budget. If it's a date that is 7/1 or later, it will be expended out of the 21-22 budget. I agree with you with regard to confusion as far as the certified line item. I think, as I understood it when we were going through this as a team, there was additional documentation that had been provided in with the resolutions that was then excluded from the budget package, which caused some confusion, was my understanding, because I was asking the same questions. So when they are saying that they looked at the budget line items for those dates that are after July 1st, they were pulling the budgeted number for the 21-22 budget as it was going to be approved by the board as of that date. So that is in the 21-22 budget. That is their line item. That's how much they put aside for this coming year. If it's a 4/28 date, and again, the dates of the service are prior to June 30th, it would be the 2021 budget, in which case your point is the date would be stale. I understand that as well.
So I just have three quick follow-ups. The next one after the Title III is general funds. Which general funds is that coming from? And that is on page 24, starting on 24 and extends into page 25. The certified budget line balance, just they see below is general fund. So I just want to understand where that's being budgeted. But then I have two questions, Kali, I would like to put on the board question log. One is, can Can we be directed and shown what was budgeted in the 21-22 budget year for summer school? And what is the total amount of dollars of resolutions that have been presented to the board? The sum of both. Kind of want to see what the difference or balance is there.
Okay, Commissioner LeBron, you had covered questions 857, resolutions 857, 859. Was it?
I have one more on 863 and then I'm done on these.
Okay, I do know there are additional questions, for example, that I have on 859. Let's try to stick with this method of, so people don't have to get up and back and forth in the
Okay.
seats. So are there any other questions with respect to 857, 859, or 860?
I have a question, 859, but
Okay.
Commissioner LeBron.
Yeah, I have a question pending right now. I asked about the general funds, whether that resolution, which is C, part of, starts on page 24 and 25. I think it's A61C, because these are long resolutions. Whether that certified budget line balance for the general fund is coming from the 2021 budget or the 21-22 budget.
That is 21-22 budget.
Okay. So the balance in that budget item line is only 20,000 and we're spending 17?
That's what we have budgeted for professional development for this particular task.
Okay, thank you. All right, President White. I'm
Vice
done.
President Elliott, you want to keep with those same resolutions?
872. My
Oh,
question
well,
about this is,
We haven't gotten 872 yet.
oh,
She just
Yeah, no,
covered.
we're not
what you,
on
what you on,
872.
859, 857 still?
850, up to, yeah, up to
Oh, okay.
859,
Oh,
860, and 861. I have one
Okay.
question on 863, but go ahead, President.
All right, so let's keep on going down the line as consistent with past practice. I'll ask the last set of questions. Commissioner Malloy?
Did Vice President Elliott have a question about 850?
No, she was 872.
Oh, gotcha.
No, 857. I mean, excuse me, 859.
Oh, I thought you said 872.
No.
You
If
did
I
say
did say
857.
that, I
Okay.
apologize.
All right, so
Yeah,
let's back up. 859.
My apologies for that.
I'm so sorry, for the
Uh,
sample.
No.
Apparently it's a bit distorting
Yes.
while you're talking on the mic. Can you
Yes.
just turn your mic off? No, it's red. It looks like it's red. Okay. Well, they were picking up something, so thanks. So it is
I'm
859.
wrong. It's 872.
872.
Yep,
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
so now I told you all.
Yeah, yeah.
James Cleveland said, please be patient. Because for a year and a half, we've been looking at electronic hands being raised. And now we're having to go back, and it is going to take us more than this meeting. So everybody's entitled to 10 million mistakes until we get it right. Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you. This is just regarding Resolution 859. I'm wondering just in general, because this is all professional development, I'm wondering what the expected finished product is going to look like. I have some concerns that this is maybe reflective of some redundancies in curriculum that we've already done. So I'm interested to see what the finished product is, how students are going to benefit. Have we already created this curriculum? Does it overlap with our EPO work, for instance? So more than anything else, I wanted to know for letter C, which CTE program are we talking about? Which CDOS certifications are we talking about? And what are the finished products supposed to look like for all of these?
All right, and so in particular, there are a combination of asks within A through J. You have professional development. Professional development is largely being developed for teachers over the summer to accommodate for our over 160 sessions that we're offering across the district around a multitude of things, including curricular adoption, hallmarks, standards, teaching pedagogy. So it's a wide range that's being developed across. The second piece of the redundancy for curricular work. And so our curricular work resolutions reflect the fact that our prior curriculum is largely aligned to old standards. Standards are being updated, and so we're making curricular updates in line with those standards. In regards to collaboration in these particular resolutions, we have the one that is G, which is our science. Our science department chair and the East EPO science department have collaborated. This resolution largely reflects the work that we're doing this summer around the rollout of a new pilot of materials. It allows our middle school teachers to come in, unpack the materials, align the resources, and then move to action in the fall. And then in terms of CTE, which is your C and D, around all of our programs, we're looking at our work-based learning and increasing the updates to that particular piece because we need to offer a bit more than we currently do. And then our D is around our computer programming, which highlights our work with our computer science information and our new partnership with Microsoft Teams.
Thank you for those responses. I'm just wondering, maybe in the future, if we could have the actual standards that are being addressed, like listed as well, just for those people who perhaps aren't as familiar with New York State standards and what the work encompasses. So thank you.
Commissioner Powell, did you have any questions with respect to, we're trying to focus on 857, 859, 860. Actually we go to 863. So did you have any questions that fall into any one of those?
So I guess the only thing I want assurances of around is just how much collaboration is happening with around the curriculum work they've already done. You did just mention, Dr. Black, that that there was collaboration, but I guess I just need a word or two to heighten my sense of confidence that that we're not spending money doing something that's already been done.
So in particular, our middle school science, our secondary social studies, our work around our secondary math curriculum is being very tied to each other. We're actually in the midst of that today. And then we have some additional collaboration that allows our East scholars and our RCSD scholars to cross-pollinate in some programs and some collaboration around our freshman orientation, freshman academy staff that we're launching this summer.
Right. So, I mean, clearly there needs to be PD in any event because curriculum developed at East still needs to be communicated and conveyed to teachers throughout the district. I certainly understand that. I do have concerns about resolution 857 and taking into advisement what our general counsel has said about having to pay it anyway. I guess the appropriate response is, I think, to insist that those responsible for making a decision as to expanding a program when there are financial implications need to be aware that they can't make those decisions in a vacuum without running it up the flagpole and ensuring that we don't have a problem when the resolution comes before us. Assuring us is, in the same way that we learn about emergencies as soon as they happen, right? Or as soon as they can be communicated to the board. Something like this, well-intended, the right thing to do for our students, should have been given the same kind of attention that that some kind of a physical emergency might have received. It's a simple fix, but if we don't change the attitude around, knowing where someone has the authority to say yes to an expansion or not, it's not going to get fixed until it gets our attention focused on it.
Thank you. I do have a few questions. I would join my colleagues and their concerns about 857. I think they've all articulated in different ways why it's important that on a decision like this, that the decision maker, which would be the Board of Education, be consulted and advised and be put in a position to make a decision, because it does have financial implications that affect the budget that we pass. So, but I think my colleagues have said that well. I just, in a general way, with respect to resolution 859, For example, I look at 859G, which I think relates to district-wide science curriculum, and 859I, which relates to next generation math curriculum, I think is how it's referred to. I want to piggyback on the comments of Commissioner Powell, and I think Commissioner Malloy, and I hope I am joined by others in this. I don't need to speak at length about this because I've done it on a number of occasions before our current superintendent was here. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel has been created. And I intend on voting for these, but I am at subsequent meetings, perhaps at Excellent and Student Achievement Committee, Equity and Student Achievement. I am going to ask for verification. I think it was, I know people don't want to hear me say this, but Ronald Reagan once said, verify, request, and verify. Trust but verify. I'm going to trust that you're going to not reinvent the wheel, but I want verification. And for those of you who would wonder why I would want verification, using the same analogy, we have been down this road many times. Superintendents have said they're going to create a new curriculum. They spend thousands and thousands. Everybody here talking about, we got to be cautious about how we spend our money. We have spent thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on reinventing this wheel over and over and over again. And when the new superintendent comes, a new curriculum is created. You can almost count on it like clockwork. And for those of you who hear me say this, you're not going to be surprised. I will not, the brief time I have left here, I will not see that happen again. We have spent millions of dollars on East High School, not just for the benefit of students. I've said this repeatedly from the outset of the creation of that effort. It was to benefit not just students and parents at East, but the entire district. It was to be an incubator of success, is what the president of the University of Rochester and I said at the time it was created. There is no need for us to spend all that money, and for each time a new superintendent comes in, he or she genuinely and for the interest of students wants to create a new curriculum. And it has never gotten off the ground. It has never traveled down the road. So I'm going to trust, but I am going to ask Vice President Elliott, who chairs the Excellence, the Equity and Student Achievement, to ask for a date that a presentation will be made, because we have heard superintendents say, oh yeah, we're going to work with the EPO, and they've not done it. This is it, Superintendent Meyer-Small. And it's unfortunate that our prior experience on this issue, which can all be verified, comes down on you. But everybody in this room is talking about saving money. And this is an area where we literally have wasted lots of money and got nothing from it. We invested significant sums, and what those folks over at East High School have done, we should get a return on investment. We are at East. Why not use it for the rest of the district? And I want to add one other observation. We keep on using the word collaboration, which is an important word to use. It's otherwise in most contexts positive, but collaboration suggests that they're one group and we're another. This is, indulge me, but this is not collaboration. This is an organization working together to make something happen. This isn't East collaborating with us. This is us taking what we invested in and using it for the rest of us. That's what this is. So, Vice President Elliott, you might have missed it, but I am going to ask, and I'm going to keep on asking, that you put on your agenda, if you will, in your discretion, that the superintendent provide us an update on where we're at in terms of utilizing the curriculum that's been developed at East High School that has obviously had some degree of success there. The superintendent there announced that their graduation rate will be north of 80%. Just 3 years ago, just 5 years ago, it was 33%. So, Madam Superintendent, I don't want to go off on like that, not give you an opportunity to respond, but I've been making this point for at least close to a decade, and the facts prove me right. We spent lots of money and it never goes anywhere, and our ELA scores and math scores are as bad as they were 10 years ago as they are right now.
Thank you, President White. So a few things. Give an update. Is that me echoing? Oh, okay. we can give an update relative to that. I just want us to be very clear that East covers secondary, so we still have to be mindful of what we do K-5. And if we're talking about proficiency in ELA and mathematics, we have to be concerned certainly with third, fourth, and fifth. So I don't want to lose sight of that. That's one. Number two, there's one thing when you talk about curriculum development, which I know we have some requests, but there's PD that's associated with that as well. So even if we completely adopted the curriculum 6 through 12, you would see the same amount or more. You would see more requests for professional development that East is submitting. So we need to be mindful of that as far as what we're moving towards. The other thing, we have to be mindful of also the fact that the secondary level, we do have some other specialized programs like International Baccalaureate or other things that we just need to be mindful of. So I think it would be helpful for Dr. Morris and Dr. Black to give an overview of where that is. What are the enabling things that enable us to move forward, and what are some of the barriers? Because we're also talking about size. They are two schools, whereas we have multiple secondary, middle and secondary schools. So in order to completely, that's going to take time and it's going to take money for that professional development, because in order to successfully, as Commissioner Malloy knows, as a secondary educator, to implement curriculum, you have to have the professional development that corresponds with that. And so that is going to take us some time you'll see more requests coming in for additional pay for the professional development. You can't say this is an award-winning curriculum that East has developed, now implement it. It takes time. You have to wrap your hands around it. You have to see how it's done. Even I would love to see us do some visitations. That's going to take some money for us to do that. So we'll go back and look at where we are as far as the implementation of it. But I also think we need to be prepared, and maybe that's the use of some American Rescue funds. We're going to have to do a lot of professional development to make sure that that said curriculum is infused across the entire district.
I want to go back over to Commissioner LeBron, but very brief in response. It goes without stating, I was referring to 6 through 12. I know that's what that's what their bailiwick is. That's what they specialize in. So that's what my comments were referring to, 6 through 12. In terms of professional development, you made the point last meeting. We can do this, but we're going to have to pay teachers to get the professional development. So it's going to be lots and lots of professional development. On that score, what I will be asking Vice President Elliott is, when you make presentations, have there been, or is there a plan to develop this professional development plan in conjunction with these so that the teachers get trained? I realize this is not going to happen between now and the beginning of next class session. I get that. And then there was some reference to culturally relevant pedagogy. You all should know, and I know most folks in this room do know, East has done extensive work at our expense through our wallet on developing culturally relevant pedagogy for students 6 through 12. Again, I will be asking Vice President Elliott to put that on her agenda as chair of the Equity and Students Achievement Committee so that we can check in periodically and seeing how that's going. My cynicism is again related to not you, but decades worth of superintendents saying they're going to develop a curriculum and spending lots of money to do it. We Commissioner LeBron may remember this. We were looking at, because I remember this was a particular point for you, was some folks had developed this curriculum and these books that were supposed to be, and they looked like they had been Xeroxed in a mimeograph room, old school, and lots of money was spent on that. So that's what for some folks. So for those who don't know what mimeograph is or why I am so anxious and upset about this, you haven't been here as long as I have and seen the promises that have been made with respect to curriculum development. Commissioner LeBron.
Thank you, President White. I actually, I do have just some questions on 863, and then I'm done with questions, but I didn't know if you want to.
Oh, yeah,
start
so
taking
we're
questions
rotating
again.
back
Okay.
to you, and then if you're on 863?
863.
Yeah, that's fine, yep.
So just a couple of points here, because I know that we still have an ELL state intervention and, plan regarding that as well, and how we're servicing our multiple language students. So for this resolution, both A and resolution, let's see, I think it comes right after B, yep. So B starts on page 30, but it's really red on page 31. So first of all, the amount, I was kind of like, we're paying someone 264 hours in about a 6-week period, maybe a little longer. To do a counselor will create a transcript checklist that registrars will then use when creating schedules for newly enrolled students. I know that, enrollment is an issue, so I was just curious as to how many new students are coming in, how many students are we serving with this individual? But then also why like that would not already be a process built into that office? Just a little confused as to who does that work if this resolution was to not pass. And then the same thing with the language assessment team. Assessing new entrants with language proficiency tests, like how does the district do that outside of this resolution? I'm just so curious about how are we doing this, but then also why we would need to hire additional staff, even if it's part-time temporary for the summer, when this is a need ongoing in this district, and why that would not be already funded and properly built into that office in particular. But this is a lot of money. So for 2 individuals for 1 month, 7/31 to 8/31, we're spending $20,000. But for this one person, we're spending $17,474 for a very short amount of pay, work in terms of schedule. But then I want to recognize that this is nothing against none of these individuals. I want to put that on record. This is nothing against them personal. Just trying to understand why these processes, which are important, are not part of like the day-to-day operations in this district and properly funded, because we're kind of cited for not properly providing these services right now for ELL students in this district.
So couple of responses. One, the difference in salary is based on the current rate of that employee. So the 200 per day, it's going to depend based on what the employee currently makes. So that's one, I believe, to answer your question as to the differences. The other one, based on what it was submitted through the executive summary, is that July, and pardon me for reading, I'm still getting used to the first meeting in person. So July and August are high enrollment months for the Rochester City School District. During the registration process, students who are determined to be potential ELLs, English language learners, and also have an individualized education plan IP are referred to the language proficiency team assessor to determine when the student has language needs or the student's disabilities affecting the student's ability to demonstrate proficiency. So in other words, July and August are very busy months. We do have a team that currently does this work throughout the year. Based on what placement is expressing is that July and August are heavy months where they expect an influence or influx of more students, especially now that we're going to in-person learning. Students that were in remote last year perhaps did not take the NICETAL, so those exams will now have to be administered when they enter the doors July and August. So in the past, where you would have done it when they came in and register, if you came in November while we were in pandemic, no NICETAL was administered. So now when the student now can come and register, they'll have the test. So just as an example of the difference of when we're in person versus not in person.
Yeah, no, and I want
Any
to just
additional questions that I may not have the answers, that they could be added to the
board log.
Board log, yeah, absolutely. And then we can get you the response right from the placement office.
Okay, I just want to highlight that I recognize that there is a peak time for this district, just like any kind of school, college setting. There are peak times in education. But just trying to understand what specifically these 2 individuals are doing if we do have a team that does this work. Because, I have to just I'll bring up MCC. I worked at MCC. We had peak times, obviously, when college students were enrolling and graduating and so forth. And we occasionally did hire temp staff to come in and support us, but there were things that they couldn't do as temp staff. So if I was an academic advisor and I was registering students, I may have a temp staff help me check in a student, make sure that they got the information, that they knew where to go, that they were being directed, that they had their questions answered, but they weren't in our system actually doing the registration. So I guess for me, I will put some additional questions around this on the question log. I will most likely be voting no, and I just want to be clear on 857 all the way to 873 tonight. But I still have lots of questions, and I just want to caution my colleagues about voting on resolutions that are not properly completed, done, vetted, and so forth, because it has created consequences for us in the past. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Lebrun, if I may,
Yes.
I just thought of another point of reference, that some of the individuals that you see here, like the school counselor, they do not work in the summer. So even though they are providing this service September through June, at the end, actually June 30th is their last day. So in order to continue the service that we do have from September to June, in order to continue that service in the month of July and August, we need to bring those employees back. So that also adds to the addition of this expense.
So just a quick question. So is this employee already someone that does this work in that office, but she's only a 10-month employee? So why would we not then just extend her and make her a 12-month employee?
I would let Steve answer that. They are RTA employees, so in order to. Like
So they're RTA, but they're
school
RTA.
counselors and RTA employees, so they don't work in the summer.
They don't have a 12-month contract.
They don't have a
They work in
12-month
the summer.
contract.
They don't have a 12-month contract.
So just for clarity, it's a 10-month employee, but it's under the RTA bargaining unit. So I get that. But they work full-time in this office doing this work? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so it might not be this particular person, for example, but it is someone that I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's
if
okay.
This particular employee is currently working there full-time. What I do know is that we do have a counselor that is assisting there September through June. So therefore, we need a counselor to assist July and August.
Yeah, so even, I have so many questions. I'm not gonna keep everybody on this one. It's really mind-boggling to me that we would have a 10-month employee in an office that should be 12 months because placement is a 12-month operation. It's not a school. It is an ongoing 12-month, operation that we would have staff there that are not 12 months, and then we're kind of hiring, and I'll just leave it at that. Steve, I'll submit my questions to the board question log. Thank you. I'll be here all night driving you all crazy about these questions. Sorry.
Dr. Jallo, and then I'll go to move my way down this way.
Just a quick follow-up question. Do you have data to support or give us an indication as to how many students do come through that office during the summer? And you said one person, then you said team. Is this just one resolution and then another resolution is coming for a team? Which is it?
The director of bilingual education is here, so I'm going to have her answer some questions as well, and she could answer your question, Dr. Jallo.
So currently Gina and Sandra Perez are the team. That is currently who we have staffed.
And so this person is going to work with them?
No, these ladies are 10-month employees. They are currently our language assessors, and these are hours for the summer.
So there's another resolution out for them in addition to this resolution for this person.
Are we talking about?
It's A is Gina and Sandra, and then the counselor is Christine.
So you have a team of 3 to address this onslaught of additional students that need support.
Yeah, so Gina is our current language assessor for 10 months, and these are her hours for the summer. Sandra Perez was just hired, and so it's a team of 2.
Okay.
In the future, we'll probably add more people, but that will be part of the hiring process. This is our current team that we always use.
So my other question is, I have concerns with the way the resolution is written, because in the justification, you say that a transcript checklist will be created by somebody, I guess by this person. So it seems to me like a deliverable would be the checklist of the transcripts.
I cannot speak to that resolution that's coming from place.
Oh, who wrote? Well, I I'm just saying a deliverable, if in fact you said the person's gonna create something that's gonna be used district-wide, it seemed to me that that would be the deliverable.
Well, in looking at the resolution, the person is going to be doing different services. The counselor, if I'm looking at the counselor resolution, which is resolution letter B, the school counselor will assess, review transcripts provided by the students entering RCSD. That's one part of what they're going to be doing. They're also going to be creating a transcript checklist that the registers will then use when creating the schedules.
But the
for
way this
them, Lord.
resolution's written, this person, the justification is for this person. So this person, if you read it the way I'm reading it, this is the person that's going to create that checklist. I mean, and something else, if you're gonna write a resolution and it refers to another resolution, there should be a reference to the other resolution so people can see the resolutions in totality and understand how they interplay with each other. The way I'm reading it in isolation, this person will be creating something that will be used systemically. And if that's the case, then that's the deliverable. Because we have no guarantee whether people will be placed or not, or placed well. But we do know that she, according to this resolution, will be creating something that will be used by the district.
Point well taken.
Vice President Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question on Resolution 872. Do we know, have we had this agreement previously? We've had this agreement previously? Okay.
No. We went through those 857 through 867. Did you have an additional question about, right now, Vice President L is addressing 872, but we can go back. Did you have additional questions? No, we're going to vote on these as a block, but what we were doing is we were taking
Now,
questions.
872 is yours.
I'm sorry. No, hold on one second. I'm just trying to get some clarity up here. So what we were doing, Commissioner Powell, is there was a motion to consider resolutions 857 to 873. That was the motion that was approved. Now we're just going through the questions. Commissioner LeBron had a series of questions and I let people follow up on those. And then Vice President Elliott wanted to get to 872. But if you have another question.
No, that's fine. It's just, that I thought the block ended with.
No,
that we
no,
were under
it-
discussion was just the additional pay. That's
No,
fine.
the block ended at 873. So Vice President Elliott.
Thank you. So Commissioner LeBron reminded me that we've entered into agreement for these services in the past. Do we have, what are the outcomes for this resolution? And has the services been evaluated to show some improvement around these services that we are enter into agreement with? So, in terms of trauma, illness, and grief, are our children better off with having these services? And I'm not sure how long we've had this agreement with CCSI, but have we seen? And as I'm even asking the question, I'm thinking perhaps we may not have. However, if we have had these services in the past, then there should be some resilience within our students and within our students and staff. Although this is for our staff, but somehow it should be taught to our students in order to how to negotiate these kinds of situations. So question is about, what have the outcomes been positive? How can we tell that this agreement, that this is a good investment for our students and staff?
May I just piggyback on that very quickly? My question was very similar to what Vice President Elliott has brought up. She wanted to know what the outcome has been. I'm wondering what is going to be produced by this, and then what is the expected evidence of that outcome?
I want to start. Previous to me coming, we had very limited use of the Trauma, Illness, and Grief Network. It's a framework where you go through a block of professional development that specifically deals with different areas. So they look at suicide, they look at the death of a parent, they look at mass shootings, et cetera. So we were very limited in the way that we deliver it. Most school districts in Monroe County are trained in this framework. And why this framework is so important is because if something happens of a violent nature or there's significant loss, because all of the school districts are trained similarly, other practitioners can come in, because as we know, we've been hit very difficultly, very recently with a lot of violence, and you can get what's called compassion fatigue. So you can have other counselors, social workers, psychologists, administrators come in, because we're all trained under the same framework. What's so critical about us further extending this is that we did not have similar response to trauma, illness, and grief in the Rochester City School District. And it really was very independently, the services were delivered, or frankly, some of our practitioners were going back on training that they frankly received in school or other PD. This is a common framework so that even with a district of our size, Commissioner Malloy and Vice President Elliott, we can even go to different schools. So 52 can go to school 8, and we're trained under the same framework. We have really pushed CCSI also to make sure that the training includes culturally responsive social emotional practices, as well as the counseling that's involved, because we are the only school district in the consortium that is predominantly Black and brown. And so they have done a really nice job of making sure that happens under Nancy Sheldon, who's doing an amazing job with us. So this is an important resource for us, and the professional development is critical because we're all trained on the same framework, and we are trained in the county under the same framework, which allows for others to come in and train. So artifacts will be certainly, I believe there's like a manual that comes with this, and I'll pass that to Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis. But this is a framework that has been around for many, many years, but we were very limited in the way that we delivered these services previous to newcomer.
Thank you so much for responding in that manner. In fact, just the fact that you're saying that this is important for uniformity district-wide, it was enough for me, so thank you.
Vice President Elliott, were you set?
Yeah, no, I just to follow up, you know, I don't know, you have to answer this for me. Is the framework for the trauma, although you did mention about it being culturally responsive, the issue that well, not an issue, but an observation is that when you look at what goes on in suburbs, you know, they have a lot, in many places around the country, they have a lot of shootings within the school. I haven't heard of urban districts having that kind of trauma. So my question, we have different kinds of trauma, a lot of it related to poverty. So is there a difference in the training as it relates to what may happen in the suburbs with, you know, students shooting and killing people like they are versus the issues that we have within the urban environment? And a lot of that is based on poverty.
Thank you for asking that. So part of this resolution that's in front of you here, and thank you, Mr. Jordan, for coming up, is that one of the deliverables from this resolution is going to be a new module that they wrote specifically with us and for us on trauma specific for young men of color, racial justice, and they're going to be doing train the trainer, so that we will have our own trainers of administrators, counselors, social workers that will then turnkey the training throughout the year. Our goal is to have our entire RCSC staff trained in this specific module. It is important to recognize that our young men of color are suffering, and our staff needs to be educated and trained in how to welcome students back as we reopen our doors. So this training that it's going to happen in the month of July is crucial in order for us to be best prepared for the scholars. So thank you for asking that.
And I think what's important, just to add on to what Melody Martinez, Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis said, we have really been pushing the contractors and the vendors that we work with, that if it's especially if it's a countywide type of situation, or they typically deliver these services in a suburban model, that we have some unique nuances to our district that make us very different. And so we're saying, if we're going to continue to partner with you, you have to be very cognizant of our demographics and what our scholars and what frankly our staff are encountering. So what Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis mentioned is something that we push, because this is a module that our suburban counterparts, it will be helpful for them, certainly, but this is really critical for us to move forward.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Jordan.
Good evening.
But I do have a question for 873, so that's.
Before you move on, I didn't say that coincidentally. It is African-American boys and young men, in addition to, of course, women of color that suffer. And given your experience and your work in this area, I think it's important that we hear from you why you think this expenditure of dollars is of value to the district.
Well, absolutely. The first thing is that if you look at boys and young men of color in our district, the demographics and the numbers show that they suffer the worst outcomes. Lower graduation rates and higher incidence of suspension and dropout. And then if you look at the violence and the things that are going on in the community, that is reflected the same. So this is an opportunity for our staff to become competent and respond correctly to address the microaggressions that people don't often even know they're throwing at our students.
Right.
I've been in schools and I've seen things that I felt like a helpless bystander when adults have said stuff to students that they didn't mean any harm by. It's just some of the things that's built into us that this training will give us an opportunity to address with our staff. So it is very important.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I appreciate that.
But Mr. Jordan, you can come back up. This is a reference to 873, My Brother's Keeper. So I'd like to know what's been the outcomes for this program, and what's the impact been within our schools and within our community.
And forgive me, Commissioner, I'm not looking at the list.
Yeah, this is the resolution 873, and I'll just read. This is in reference. This is in reference to.
You show my age.
Come on, Kalia, really?
Do you have a hard copy of it, Kalia?
He's got it here.
Okay. This is in reference to enter into an agreement with the providers for My Brother's Keepers services.
Yeah, I can just give you a really quick summary.
Okay.
We were off to a challenging start because we merged the way we run and operate the grant with the city. The intent from the state is that we collaborate and work, collaboratively together so that we can address not only situations and issues in the school district, but throughout the community, because our boys and young men of color who come to our schools live in our community. So this gives us the best opportunity to serve our boys and young men of color. So we've seen some really bright spots in terms of the results of some of the programming. We did start quite late. So we're excited about the early indicators and what's going to happen for next school year. We're off to great planning, and it's going to allow us to have a complete year to look at the programs, the vendors themselves. Most of them are grassroots and are very excited about the opportunity to serve young men in our district. And most of the grant serves young men and boys of color, but there are opportunities that classes will, they'll serve boys and girls, but the focus is boys and young men of color. So the early outcome and indicators say that this is going to really help. We've been saying change the game. Dr. Jalla has been saying how y'all gonna move the needle. We trying to move the needle, and I think we have some great opportunities for next school year that's going to do that. It's going to make our community proud, make our district proud of this particular initiative.
So tell me a little bit about the City of Rochester's programs the Summer Career Employment Academy, and the Victims of Violence Support.
Yeah, so the victims of violence support is just in response to all the violence that we're seeing. Often when a family experiences violence, the response time that is required for agencies or for financial support or for counseling can be delayed. So this gives the city an opportunity to respond to our students a lot quicker. Some of the other parts of violence that people often maybe ignore or forget is that the perpetrator side of this, their family is also in jeopardy, and they also are experiencing trauma and challenges. So this also opportunity for us to address both sides, to also get out and work with anybody who has had residual effects from a violent act or from a loss, including relocation. I mean, if a kid is involved in something hot, we have to find ways to actively pull staff and community members together to move that student to a safe place until a long-term plan can be developed.
So is this more counseling under this agreement?
It's all of those things that you would see that would happen in a situation of violence, some counseling, some action, some support to families.
Okay.
All those things that a family, things that we wouldn't even think that families need. The cities work really hard to develop teams of folks to react to some of these issues, the mental health side of things. So, this is going to provide a complete response, an immediate response.
And then the summer career program, what do they do? And these are our students?
These are our students. They will be placed in jobs throughout the community, most of them in the rec centers, but they will be receiving training and development from trainers. I was over there this morning as we prepare the agenda to have our students hear from experts in the community. We have a steering committee of great gentlemen who will be presenting, and they'll also be getting work experience. They'll be receiving some of the benefits of the Summer of Opportunity program. So, this will be, hopefully MBK has to be a little extra in terms of the summer of experience, but they will get this kind of training on top of the work experience and opportunity to earn some money this summer.
Vice President Elliott, I just want to add that I think previously there were very significant silos that existed between Rochester City School District and the city of Rochester, particularly within this MBK program. We have worked really hard with Dr. Danielle Lyman Torres, Commissioner of Parks, Recreation, and Human Services. And I think you're going to see as we move forward, and this, the MBK is just one example of us really partnering and working together. You saw our summer superhero initiative. That's with Dr. Danielle Lyman Torres. So you're going to see more partnerships and more collaboration that I think in particular will benefit not only our males, our boys of color, but being a district 90% Black and brown, our girls as well. So yeah, I'm encouraged by that.
And thank you. And I just want to share with my colleagues with regard to the Rochester Construction Training Center that I have visited that program over there. There were no students there because of COVID at the time. But they seem to have had quite a bit of success in that program of getting them the skill set that they need. So thank you very much, Mr. Jordan.
Have a good evening.
We don't have those digital hands anymore, but I did see Commissioner LeBron.
Yeah,
and then
I just wanted
Commissioner
to
Clark.
follow up. So Tony, stay right there. But just a couple of things with the My Brother's Keeper. I'm going to continue to vote no and continue to ask the state to do an audit on that grant, and particularly for the city spending side of it. So yeah, we didn't have a great start in terms of the collaboration with the city, but that was also due to, in part, the city trying to strong arm us into forcing us into certain expenditures of employees, basically trying to move one of their budget item lines into our grant, and us having that fight back a few years back. So here we are, like a few months ago, there was a resolution that passed to have a better alignment with the city. I, again, don't support that. But Tony, what you just mentioned is the pathways to peace. And so I just want to reiterate, because that has come up before in this board, and certainly something I've argued with how the city moved some funding and restructured Pathways to Peace and made full-time people part-time people. And I would argue that that model is really a community health worker model. It's based out of people, relationships. And when you make those type of positions part-time, the individuals who end up taking those employments cannot support their family. And so you will see a high turnover rate, which is what continuously happens. And then it's really difficult for those individuals to have the necessary relationships to do gang intervention, prevention, and outreach and engagement with those families. So some of what you described really was what the original Pathways to Peace was intended to do, for not just the intervention piece, but that outreach piece when families and young people in particular were victims of violence on either side, that relocation, reallocation. So I just want to put some of that historical context, because I was a very strong supporter of Pathways to Peace in the original model of full-time people that are being paid an affordable, livable wage, not part-time, because again, these are still individuals that come from the community to serve the community. They should be able to support their families with that model. So that's really all I want to say about all these things with MBK. I know that the boys and some of the staff are extremely dedicated, and I've seen you all in action, and the students, and you guys are all amazing. I think there's some politics behind that, and I want to uplift that too, that is a real thing too, for me especially. And I would also want to start having conversations about the transition that the city is going to go through with City Hall and leadership, and what that means for the partnerships that we currently have. Because some of the folks that you all may be depending on for relationships may not be the face that's there after January 2022. So put that on record too. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark.
Yes, thank you, President White. Most of my question has been answered, so thank you, Commissioner Elliott and Commissioner LeBron. But my question really related to the resolution that we passed, where the $472,000 goes back to the city. And I was trying to figure out how those funds used. Are they used in alignment with in-school meals? And are they used to kind of supplement what we're doing with our portion of the My Brother's Keeper grant? If you can elaborate on that 472,000.
Yes, sir. It's in collaboration. So the grant is intended to serve students at our CSI schools. So those are the target students that we're trying to provide services to. So they are providing those services. Some of them take place in schools. Some of them take place out of schools. Particular program that takes place out of school is the Black Male Achievement Program. They're providing direct mentoring activities. We have another program that has been phenomenal. It's called Generation Outreach. It's a student that has graduated from the district, Justin Ortiz. A phenomenal program. He operates at 1 East Avenue. He has like the top floor. If y'all want to see something that's heartwarming and wonderful, our students are rushing to get there. They're doing stuff like sneaker design, photo, electronic photos, all this new stuff that our children are in, and these are the jobs of the future.
Yes.
I went to his parents' celebration, full house on a Friday night. Matter of fact, Father's Day weekend. All the parents were there to celebrate their children's completion of the program. So some of the programs are unique and different like that with guys like Justin. So what you've seen is that 472, when it transferred over, it allowed us to utilize those services that we weren't able to contract with. So the city, in collaboration with us, brought those vendors and folks to provide services to our students.
Great, thank you.
Before I go to Commissioner Malloy, because I know she has a question regarding 867, my comments on what my colleagues have just said can be summarized best by saying thank you, Mr. Jordan. We can talk a lot about, a lot of people want to put up Black Lives Matter signs, but they don't want to put up Black men who stand up for making differences in our community. And I want to thank the superintendent for putting you here today And my asking you questions a few minutes ago was very intentional. If our young men are to aspire to things that are different than some of the things they see in the streets, they have to see leaders like you. And I want to thank you because you've been very diligent over many years, working in the vineyards. Nobody's not trying to get people's attention, not trying to win elective office. You've been out there doing that work. And I know you don't look for credit, but you deserve it.
So
And
please stop. I haven't earned that, but I appreciate the opportunity. The superintendent
Yes,
has given
absolutely.
me a lot of trust on this project, and I thank you for doing that.
But let me stop you.
Work has to be
Let
done.
me stop you, because I was being deflective too, when someone's trying to give, as they do, people compliments. Sometimes you just have to stop and accept it, because this is your moment. And I've talked a lot about our superintendent, and a lot of people have. She's done a great job, but this isn't her moment. This is yours, and you deserve it. And the reason why I want to point that out is in case any young Black male in particular is watching, they should know that you can be successful, not only individually, but on behalf of the collective. So please, I know why you're doing what you're doing. You're a humble man, but she don't need to hear it. She hears it all the time, and she deserves it. You deserve to hear it now. So thank you for that good work. We appreciate you. Okay, I'm gonna go and call Commissioner Malloy, because you're gonna say something that you shouldn't be saying about all the other good work other people do. Commissioner Malloy, I think you had a question about
Well, this is about
867.
867, so I don't know if you're up for that. Okay,
I can
thank
go
you
sit
for
down.
everything.
Yeah, you go.
So this is just
Yeah, we'll
regard,
never get up.
who's, oh, it's Janelle, okay. So this is just about the SNAP-WITS contract. Looks like Edulastic, which was the creation of formative assessments, it looks like. And I'm just interested in knowing how many students are going to benefit from this, who is our intended audience or recipient, what is the expected outcome from this product. This is a huge investment, it looks like. And so I want to know how it fits into our existing framework for instruction district-wide.
All right, thank you for the question. So part of the charge of the state monitor's academic plan is to develop and implement an approved assessment plan annually. And therefore, one of the elements of adoption of that plan was to examine our current formative and summative assessments that we are offering to our students. And so one of the areas of strength and gap was in the area of formative assessments. And so what we've done is we've analyzed the assessments that we have currently available for our K-12 students. We wanted to implement a formative assessment system that would be able to provide our teachers and our educators immediate information about the performance of our students, K-12. So finding a comprehensive formative assessment system that can provide that type of data, we were able to find that after going through an RFP process. We went through several tools and analyzed those. So for the formative assessment component of our assessment tool or assessment plan, we have proposed adopting the SNAP-WITS product. This is one element of the assessment plan that we are looking to adopt. We are looking to analyze and adopt other areas of our assessment plan to ensure that we are having congruence between the assessments and our curriculum and instruction tools that we currently have. But this is one element of formative assessment that we can immediately provide to our teachers in our schools that will allow us to have information to support student instruction with their teachers.
Will they need professional development in using this then?
Yes.
And that's probably a later resolution
Yes,
in the future.
yes,
And this is going to benefit K through 12,
yes,
K through 12 students?
Yes.
All right, so all of our students, essentially all schools.
yes.
Okay. You know what I would really love is if maybe via the question log later, if we could see how this works somehow, if you could give us some
Absolutely.
resources just to look at that. I'm selfishly, going to use this as well, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to remind you all, we time check, we are an hour behind our agenda. But I think we've pretty much exhausted the first batch of resolutions, which is 857 to 873 non-consecutive, of course. So I'd like to go ahead and take a vote, so long as there's no objection. All those in favor of resolutions 857 through 873 non-consecutive, of course, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Nay.
No on 857.
Seems that notwithstanding those noes, the ayes have it, Madam Clerk, and that will be entered into the record. Now, I'd like, unless there's some opposition, to take resolutions 912 through 927. Of course, these are non-consecutive. It appears that 913 and 914 are not a part of that packet, but so long as you guys support that discussion, please give me a motion to discuss resolutions 912 and 927. I heard by Commissioner Powell make that motion, seconded by Vice President Elliott. Any questions or comments regarding resolutions 912 to 927?
Other than, I don't see Mike here, but I'm pretty pleased about resolutions 923 and 927, that they are MWBE organizations. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you for recognizing that, Vice President. I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments?
I guess I just wanted to say, I'm wondering, 'cause these seem to have been submitted on time, most of the operations related submissions. So I just want to highlight that, I'm wondering why we didn't vote on this like last week when they were in on time and could have been discussed. I guess that's just a concern.
There were so many, Commissioner Roy. We just said because the time wasn't of the essence, we would just move it to tonight since we're having. But they were on time.
So I just want to actually point out that only a certain number of them were in on time. And then there was another block that were also added last minute for operations. But I would acknowledge that they did submit at least half, but there is a certain number, perhaps the clerk may know off the top of her head, but if she doesn't, I won't put her on the spot. But only a certain number were in on time.
And just to sort of have the last word on that subject, it was a bit of a challenge last meeting, but we got beyond it, and today is evidence of that. And I appreciate everybody on this side of the dais and the other side for getting us to the point where we're at today, which it appears that we're going to be able to vote on all these resolutions, get ourselves caught up. So thank you, staff on the board side and the administration side. Any other questions or comments regarding resolutions 912 to 927? Don't see any. All right, so let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of resolution 912 through 927, again, these are non-consecutive resolutions. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Madam Clerk and Madam Superintendent, it appears that the ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is 937. Commissioner Malloy, will you do us the privilege of describing this gift resolution? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Malloy, will you make that motion?
Motion?
Yeah, and a second by Commissioner Powell. All right, Commissioner Malloy, tell us about this gift resolution.
Yeah, so resolution 937 is just regarding a gift from Connected or the Connected New York program. So this is through the Digital Promise Project from the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, as well as the Schmidt Futures and Ford Foundation. This will benefit our students who happen to lack internet services for pre-K through 12th grade students. And it's going to provide 3,500 hotspot devices along with 50 gigs per month of wireless services. So we are truly grateful for this generous gift to benefit our students and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Any questions or comments regarding resolution 937? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of resolution 937 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The ayes have it, Madam Clerk. Next item on the agenda is the budget transfer proposal. Commissioner LeBron, you're going to lead this discussion.
Oh, yeah, I actually almost forgot about this
Thank
discussion.
you.
So thank you. So just really quickly, we passed a new budget transfer policy. So thank you for all that, for this board for voting on it and deliberating, except that I guess we didn't take into account the end of the school year closing out the books, and that does require some transfers. There was a little bit of confusion, and I'll have Carlene also come up if she wants to explain for the team. But we are essentially looking to perhaps waive the policy during the closing of the books, but then ask the staff and the team to come back with those resolutions to identify what transfers were completed. Because the point is that we still want to understand and know what was moved from one budget item line to the other. The problem is the timeline of when they need to do it and how they're working in real time versus when we'll be able to vote on it in advance. And that only applies to the closing of the books. So Carlene, I'll let you further explain if you have more to add to that.
Thank you very much. Yes, we would like to actually submit a resolution so that each of these transfers would be up to a given dollar amount. So for instance, if it's related to food service, typically we run a deficit with our food service program. That particular resolution would say up to $3 million. We would not exceed that amount of money, but we would present to you the resolution, and then absolutely, as Commissioner LeBron is saying, the following business meeting then too, we would show you exactly what those budget transfers were. You'll see where the money went to and where it came from. So it's absolutely transparent. But we just wanted to, again, give a little bit of flexibility in there, giving a high dollar amount, and then fall within that limit and then present to you the following meeting, if that's possible.
Any questions for our Chief Financial Officer, Commissioner Powell?
So aren't the transactions generally adjusting entries?
It would be for the year-end closure, right? So it's putting the money in the proper codes. So for instance, there will be salary codes and benefit codes that need adjusting. So that would be pairing books for that closeout. You're correct.
But as adjusting entries, they would happen essentially after June 30th anyway.
It's preparing, it will happen after June 30th, but it's going to be part of the year-end closing process. So the money has to get into the proper account code so that we can close the books.
I'm struggling with what is the ask exactly?
Okay, so for instance, I'm using school lunch fund as an example. If we're running a deficit in the school lunch fund, we need to move the money out of the general fund over to the school lunch fund to balance the books, so to speak, and bring it positive so that we can close out the year.
And you're saying that you don't know exactly how much you're going to need to transfer? You want to be able to work within a ballpark at first?
That's correct, because the books aren't officially closed. We're not quite at the end of the month yet, but we will be preparing the projections to close the books down, and we just wanted to have a level, a limit to work within, to give us a little bit of flexibility, because I can't give you an absolute dollar amount tonight.
Okay, so because we're within a day of year end, what you and the policy doesn't offer you the flexibility that you need. You'd like us to perhaps waive the transfer policy for year end, and then perhaps we revisit the policy and get the policy language to be more accommodating of a year-end process?
Correct. As we knew when we prepared the policy for submission for approval, it was our first time through with the policy. And within that policy, we stated that we would need to review it annually to absolutely get to a point where it works for the district, works for everyone.
But you all set?
I'd be happy to propose a motion from the floor to waive policy 6150 for year-end processing only.
Before we move on that, I know Vice President Elliott had a question or a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So this, I know the policy was to help us to have control given, the circumstance that we was in before that the auditors found. And so how does this, you're asking us to do this, will it still keep us in compliance with the policy so that there are not any auditing issues? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm not asking it as clearly as I should, because this is not an area of expertise for me, but I just want to make sure that this board is doing doesn't get caught out there again, you know, the way it was caught out before. And, you know, with you asking for this sort of waiver, you know, what position does that put us in as a board? Is my concern about that, so.
I appreciate your question. And again, it gets down to trust and integrity, and you realize that we're on the road to recovery with all of this. So I do appreciate you bringing the question forward. And we did think it through, and that's why we had made the proposal that at the very next meeting, we will submit to you an absolute report to show you exactly where all the money went to and where it came from, so that you will have full disclosure on that.
Okay.
It's a fair question.
I just want to add in support to our CFO is that the budget transfer policy was also, I don't know if the auditor cited us specifically for budget transfers, but I do know and recognize that a lot of what occurred with passing a budget and then closing the books and how those dollars were moved in large sums did not put this board in a position to fully understand what our expenditures were and part of the deficit and so forth. It was, and unfortunately, we did have previous superintendents and their administration who kind of took advantage of us not having that loophole, not understanding. So the budget transfer policy is really intended so that if we pass the budget and there is a large sum of money being moved from one budget item to the other, it has to come before the board before they do it. Essentially the same way we expect to know that you're hiring more teachers because you want to serve students and you didn't budget appropriately. We would want to know that before it comes after the fact, but yeah, we just lived that example. So we would want to know that way in advance. I think where it gets tricky and what Carlene and her team want to ensure, because this is the first time this policy is in place with year-end closing, was that hey, wait a minute, we didn't think about have the foresight for this, and that includes all of us, like this year-end piece. They don't want to be out of compliance with the policy that we just adapted, probably not even more than 60 days at this point. And then we have to figure out how to perhaps bring back up the policy and make an exception in the future for this process here. And it could be that during the with the exception of closing, and what that process looks like for closing should be that we do get a report of all the, you know, transactions that happened in those budget item lines to close the each book for each budget item line. So that could be, and certainly can bring it back up. And I think this would actually be the time, because Commissioner Powell and the subcommittee are reviewing finance policies. Even though it's a new policy, I feel like we can just bring it up again for July and August in the subcommittees.
If I could add one other thing in there, if we do our job correctly within the finance department, which I promise you we're going to do absolutely our best that we can, you will not see as many budget transfers moving forward. Because if we put the money in the correct accounts to begin with, you're not going to have this back and forth. So next year at this time, when you get the budget transfer reports, they will be greatly reduced, I promise you, because we studied that. And we will continue to do so as we move forward.
Commissioner Powell, were you going to say something?
So the policy was adopted February 25 of this year, so it wasn't just a month or two ago. And, you know, and I'm fully prepared again to make a motion from the floor to waive the policy for year end, but it occurs to me that the prime example, the prime safeguard that this provides is to specifically ensure that we know about cases of deficit spending. Now, the example of the school lunch fund is something we certainly knew well in advance, because we know under COVID conditions that we haven't been able to meet our costs with the number of meals being served. And so it makes perfect sense to me. If that was the only deficit that we needed to make a transfer to cover for, we've been given ample warning in advance that that was going to happen. But in fact, this covering deficits is precisely why we needed a budget transfer policy. And very often, our most recent financial crisis being an example, we didn't know we were in a deficit. No, it was not called to our attention that we were in a deficit situation until year end. So we had to be really careful about how we change the language of this policy and the demands of this policy. But given the example that you offered of the school lunch program and it being in a deficit position now, I reiterate, I'm prepared to offer and will at this time offer a motion to waive policy.
I'll second.
6150.
Before you do
Yes.
the motion, if we could do it as a resolution instead of a motion, so it's documented.
We just need to add a number to it.
Steve, go ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
October's a long way.
Okay, so here's my proposal. Resolve that the board hereby waives the requirement of pre-approval of transfers in excess of $500,000 in policy 6150 for the year-end closing of the financials, subject to reporting of all such transfers by the CFO by September 30th, 2021.
That's your motion, Commissioner
That would be
Powell?
resolution 938.
938. That would be your motion, Commissioner Powell? to
I'll
advance that-
second.
That resolution. It's been moved and seconded by Commissioner LeBron, moved by Commissioner Powell. You just heard the resolution read by our general counsel. Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments regarding that resolution 938? We've already had considerable conversation, so let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of resolution 938 as described by general counsel and put on the record indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. Appreciate everyone's work on getting that done. I think, Carlene, you are right. Best case scenario, we don't have to do this in the future, but I think it was clearly understandable why we'd have to do it now. And as my colleague said, yours was a good example of how you come to the board in advance. And then earlier we had an example of maybe how not to do it with the employees. But this is an administration that is, as I said, James Cleveland would say, please be patient. This is a difficult job that you all have, and we appreciate the diligence and the effort to always try to get it right. So now, next item on our agenda is executive session. We have to, for those who are going to be watching this on a recording, we have to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters, which we're not allowed to discuss publicly. Additionally, there are some other matters related to section 105 of this.
President White?
Yes?
If you could just adjourn the meeting, because we will do the closed session and we wouldn't need to.
Well, it doesn't really make any difference.
The closed session.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's get a motion to close the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Then moved by Commissioner Malloy. I think I heard seconded by Commissioner LeBron.
Yep, let's go.
All those in favor of closing the meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait. Too many people talking at one time, please. Commissioner Powell? We're not. I asked that question and it's right now, we're just not up to speed to do that technologically. Going to take a little time to get there, but we're not going to do it tonight. Commissioner LeBron, were you going to?
For you to complete by Friday, but I wasn't able to set it up here so that we could do it through Zoom tonight.
Clearly understandable. Commissioner LeBron, were you going to say something?
No, I'm just motioning and voting yes to close the meeting.
Okay, all right.
The motion was on the floor.
It's been moved and seconded, but it was a good question. It was a good question about the survey. And then people corrected me. We're going to close the meeting down because we don't have anything to discuss afterwards. We're going to meet with our council. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Good night, everybody.